All right, let's jump right into this incredible story of Viking navigation. It's a tale where ancient legend collides with modern physics, and honestly, the jury is still very much out on what's true.
For centuries, you had the Vikings. These guys were the absolute masters of the sea. In their famous longships, they sailed all the way from Scandinavia to North America, completely redrawing the map of the known world. Their skill was, well, legendary.
But here's the big mystery that has always puzzled people. How on earth did they navigate so confidently through the fog and clouds that are so common up in the North Atlantic? They didn't have magnetic compasses, you know? So if you're out there and you can't see the sun, you're in some very serious trouble.
Well, a clue might be hiding in the old Icelandic sagas. Now, these stories were written long after the Viking Age, but they mention a special crystal, a Sólarsteinn, which means sunstone, a rock that could supposedly pinpoint the sun's location even when it was totally hidden. Sounds like magic, right? But what if it wasn't?
So could this be more than just a cool legend? This is where things get really interesting, because modern science has something to say about it. It turns out the secret behind this magic stone isn't magic at all. It's just physics, specifically optics.
And the key to the whole thing seems to be this one particular crystal, Iceland Spar. It's a clear type of calcite, and you can find tons of it in Iceland. It's pretty, sure, but what makes it special is this really weird way it plays with light.
This crystal has a special property with a fancy name, birefringence. But don't worry about the term. All it really means is that when a ray of light goes into the crystal, it gets split in two. One ray becomes two separate rays. It kind of gives you instant double vision.
And this picture shows it perfectly, right? See how the text looks doubled? That's the birefringence in action. But here's the crucial part. Each of those two new light rays is polarized in a different way. The crystal acts like a natural filter for sunlight.
And this isn't just theory. People today have gotten their hands on these crystals to try it out, and they say it's wild. This one person on Reddit said that after just a little practice, they could find the sun with startling accuracy, even when it was behind their house or below the horizon. They said it felt like a superpower. And that superpower is actually a real thing. It turns out some of us can actually see polarized light. It shows up as this super faint yellowish bow tie shape in our vision. It's called Heidinger's brush. Now, normally you'd never notice it, but the Iceland Spar crystal, it makes that pattern pop. It becomes way easier to see, and that little yellow bow tie, it points right at the sun.
Okay, so the science totally checks out. A simple rock can be used to find the sun. Awesome. But here's the million-dollar question. Did the Vikings actually use them? What's the proof?
Well, the case is built on just a few clues, and they're spread out over a long time. You've got the sagas mentioning it in the 13th century, a potential crystal found on a much later shipwreck, and then a whole bunch of modern computer studies from just the last few years.
And those recent studies are pretty mind-blowing. Scientists ran thousands of computer simulations of a Viking ship going from Norway to Greenland, programming in all sorts of cloudy weather. The results? If the crew just used a sunstone every 3 hours to check their position, they made it successfully between 92 and 100% of the time. That is an insane success rate.
But, and this is a big but, despite the compelling science and those incredible results, most historians and archaeologists are, let's just say, not buying it. Not at all. They have some really serious problems with the whole idea. So let's look at the case against.
You know, for the folks who actually study this period for a living, this whole sunstone thing is kind of an old, tired idea. They say it's something scientists get excited about every few years, but it just has no basis in actual history. As they see it, it's a cool solution to a problem that might not have even existed.
And their arguments are pretty tough to ignore. First, the sagas, written 200 years after the fact. They're epic poems, not instruction manuals. Second, the crystal itself, Iceland Spar, it doesn't even come from Norway or Denmark, where the Viking Age started. And that crystal from the shipwreck? Yeah, an English ship, 500 years too late. And maybe the biggest point? If they had this amazing tool, why did the Vikings have a specific word, havila, that literally means being totally lost and confused at sea? But maybe the real nail in the coffin is what we haven't found. We've dug up hundreds of Viking sites. We've found entire ships buried in the ground, perfectly preserved. We found their weapons, their treasure, their everyday stuff. And in all of that, not one single sunstone. Not one. 0 objects we can say for sure were used for navigation.
So this is where we're at.
A total standoff. It's history versus physics. You've got one side saying, look, it's possible, and the other side saying, yeah, but show me the proof.
And the physicists aren't backing down. To really drive the point home, they've actually built modern versions of a sunstone compass, and guess what? They work. They work really, really well. They've proved that this isn't just some fantasy. It's a practical, sophisticated tool.
And this really just sums it all up, doesn't it? On one hand, the physicists say, hey, the science is perfect, the accuracy is amazing, and it solves a real problem. What more do you want? But on the other hand, the historians are saying the sagas are unreliable. There's zero archaeological evidence. It's just a nice idea. It all comes down to that classic debate. It could have happened versus prove that it did happen.
So that leaves us with this massive question, one that's way bigger than just Viking history. When science shows us something is absolutely possible, how much physical proof do we really need to believe it? The physicist proves it could have worked, and worked brilliantly. The historian looks at the empty ground and asks, but did it? So what do you trust more, the elegant proof of what's possible, or the cold, hard silence of the historical record? And right there, in that gap, the saga of the Sunstone remains beautifully unresolved.